Our mind. It's such a fascinating component of being an entrepreneur. We often think about what's the next strategy, what's the next action plan, what's the next thing to do. But when we actually learn to be more, to align who we are, we actually need to work less because we work in alignment. So today we have with us Dr. Libby Kemkaran, who is a neurocoach and business psychologist. She's an accredited flow consultant. And we talked together about the 4 business brains that we have. A beautiful conversation to help us understand who we are, help us understand how we act, and understand also the people on our team, who they are, who they act, our clients, who they are, how they act, and how as a leader we can be in alignment with more who we are, and also give space for everyone else to shine. So if you want to bring simplicity, more alignment, this is definitely an interview that you'll want to watch every single minute out of it. I had so many aha moments, so many realization. And seriously, let's just go to my interview, and I hope you also get the same nugget of wisdoms that I did. Libby, thank you so much for accepting my invitation today.
It's so lovely to be here. Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So people in my audience know I'm fascinated by human behavior, how we act, why we act this way, and things like that. So we're really going to geek out today. But before we get to our topic today, could you take a moment to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I am so excited to be here because as a geek who lives and breathes this stuff, it's lovely to meet a fellow geek. So my speciality is, why do people do what they do? How does the brain steer us? Because the body won't go where the mind doesn't tell it. And I realized this really young in my career, where I started following success, spotting what people were doing. And so I took this all the way to degree level. I did a degree in the Neural Mechanisms of Behaviour at Cambridge University, whilst I was also doing a medical degree. And so that fired up my brain about the brain. And I also studied the neonatal mechanisms of behaviour and where behaviour starts. Where does it come from? And it's just been my lifelong mission now to put this in the hands of people running businesses so that they can run their business more easily. Because when your neurology works with you, not against you, and when you can soothe your nervous system and regulate your hormones and energy balances, you win this game so easily. It becomes so easy. And your business just starts to move with grace and flow. And it's beautiful.
I love it. And I love that we are getting away of the hustle and the strategy and the doing and the more, when we work more in alignment,
yes,
everything just gets simple.
And people talk about time management all the time. It's not time management, it's energy management. We all have the same amount of hours, but some people are wildly productive, and that's because of that alignment piece. And that's when you're in alignment, you stop fighting yourself, you get out your own way, and suddenly your business just explodes. I have unreasonable results that is not reasonable to earn the amount of money that I do, but it's happened because of this alignment piece.
I love the unreasonable, because
it's totally unreasonable.
That's what I'm all about. It's unreasonable. It's like, yep.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I just had a car journey where it's like £5,000 flowed towards me in a car journey because I did one call, and that's I'm on the school run. That's unreasonable, right? But those sort of results just start to magically appear.
Yes, I like that. So there's one thing that you mentioned to me, and I really wanted to dig into there, like the business brain.
Yes.
What is it? What does it mean?
Well, so when I was doing my medical degree, which incidentally was a veterinary medical degree, so we train with the doctors. So all the vets and the medics are in the same room. So there's like 500 at a time in Cambridge, because they do a big batch like every year. And so you're going through these lectures and you're going through, and what I noticed was people study so differently. People behave so differently. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, is that because of how they're trained? Is that because of what schooling they've had? No, it can't be that. It can't be that obvious. Mm-hmm. So I started digging into neurology and neurological types. And I realised there are lots of different profiling tools out there in the world. But all of them come up with the same conclusion, that roughly it splits into 4 main quadrants of thinking styles, to put it a different way. So you might have heard of like Myers-Briggs or DISC or PRISM or Insights. There's a myriad of them. But what they don't take into account is that our brain is so primed by out-of-date software. We still react as if we're facing a saber-toothed tiger. There are not many of those around these days, but every time.
I saw one downtown the other day.
I don't know what Canada's like for sabers, but but that software still runs behind our eyes. So you get threatened, you have to have a call with an angry client, you have to do a driving test, your calf muscles get really tight. Awesome, because it's fight or flight. So our brains go into a very primal response mode as soon as that cortisol floods your body. So your hypothalamic pituitary axis fires up, and before you know it, you've got that, your heart races, your breathing gets tight. You do this initial gasp and pause where your ears suddenly upregulate their hearing ability. Your depth of field suddenly increases. All of this is to face a saber-toothed tiger. It's not so hot in business. So, and I suddenly realised whilst watching all these different study styles and different ways that people were learning, was that so much of it is down to your brain biochemistry. Yeah. Everything comes back to, what's your brain doing right now? And I'm quite a classicist because of my training. I start with the chemicals. What chemicals flooding you? Is it dopamine, the achievement drug? Is it oxytocin, the bonding drug? Is it like your big 4 of happy hormones of like your GABA, your endorphins, your serotonin? Depending on which one it is, your body behaves a completely different way. So as soon as we get clarity on that, as soon as we know what we're dealing with, we get immense superpowers. We get really good at altering our behaviour because suddenly we're in the driving seat.
That is fascinating, because as entrepreneurs, we tend to look for the next shiny object. So what's the next thing that we're going to do and whatever. Okay. But if I take a moment and say, okay, which one of the business brains is actually mine? Which hormone am I seeking to create more? I don't know if that's the right word. But then I realized that the doing is completely secondary.
Yeah, the doing is a byproduct, and your results are just the output of the doing. It's what you're being that's the important thing. It's not and this is where so many people get hung up on, what do I do? What strategy? No, come back one step before that. What are you being? What's your mind doing? Because your results come from your actions. Your actions come from emotion. It's how you feel about something determines whether you do it or not. And your emotion comes from your thoughts. So you have to choose wisely. You have to be in control of what you let in here. Because this 6 inches, there's 6 inches you'll ever play with, right? This is the place where it all starts. And if we can get a lock on that and start to understand, my programs are called Tame Your Brain. It's all about getting the brain to calm and soothe when we need it to, so we don't just live in this emotional chimp-like reaction, because we're still just human animals at the end of the day. We are all just running this software and behaving. Any big emotion that spikes at an intensity of more than a 4 is from your chimp brain. It's directly from that old-fashioned limbic system that's right in the centre of your brain, the really oldest part of it, not this rational prefrontal neocortex where all your logical, rational decisions are made. And we like to think we're really grown up and that's driving the car. It's not. It's sat in the passenger seat, tapping timidly on the arm of the chimp that's gripping the wheel and going, ah! Like steering us off into Death Valley. And just like sometimes we do things and we look at ourselves afterwards and go, oh, you absolute tit. But at the time it seems so logical, doesn't it?
Yes. And I often say, like, finally, we're all 4 years old.
Yes. Having that little
I'll talk with my clients and I'm like, yes, that was a very mature way. And they and we know it when you do something after that. We're like, yeah, okay, maybe that was not the best way to handle it. But our reaction was that. So remember you telling me that there's 4 types of business brain?
4 brains, which I, due to my obsession with all things feline, have labelled as big cats, because there's no such thing as a bad big cat, is there? They're all good. Everyone loves being a big cat. Whereas with a lot of profiling tools, you get your badge and you look at it and you go, red? What does a red mean? What does a red actually mean? And they're not like characters. And so I decided to look at the main traits And because of my encyclopedic knowledge of wildlife and cats, I could very easily fit that to a type of behaviour that you see in a certain big cat. So, for example, the cheetah brains, of which I'm guessing a lot of your clients will be in this zone, and you might see if you recognise some of yourself in here, people listening on this little jaunt. But the cheetah brain is that really high-powered, fast mover, that's 70 miles an hour or stop. They've only got two speeds. They're either flat out, gunning down their next big idea, or they're asleep in the sun. And these people they wake up and they have 3 brilliant ideas in the shower every morning, but they'll follow through precisely none of them because they get distracted by the next bright, shiny penny. And then they're, over here, like, look at this. And then off they go. And so they can be incredibly focused and dedicated so long as we're talking about the start of a project. As soon as it begins to feel like hard work, they'll give themselves lots of reasons why they can't, and they'll start procrastinating like mad. Because as soon as it begins to feel out of flow for them, they find lots of excuses. They actually tell themselves a lot of stories about why they can't do things, because their identity, their ego, is very important to them. How they're perceived is really important to them. So status and significance is a big part of why they build a business. They want to be seen to be successful. So as soon as they hit the roadblocks, which bluntly are only because they need a team around them, but they won't have thought it through like that, because they've got this brilliant idea that nobody else can see, because they're very visual. They're very high level visual people. They've got this head in the clouds, high range vision where they can see for miles. They're usually ahead of their time as well. They're usually well ahead of the curve timing wise, because they've thought of something before somebody else did, because they've got this brilliant intuitive thinking style that means they're off.
Yes.
Watch the world still catching up. And also they don't see a problem until it's on fire. So they're really ahead. They're always thinking of the next. They're not thinking of the now. And the key word's always what's next, what's coming. But by contrast, as soon as you move around the grid and you get to the lion brain, which I got a feeling you are, you start thinking more about connectivity, because the lion lives in a pride, and they eat together, hunt together, sleep together. They live in union. And so these are the cheerleaders. These are the arm around the shoulders. They know everybody's birthday. They organise the leaving drinks. They're always the one at the water cooler going, how was your weekend? Tell me all about your life. How's your Auntie Ada? Did she get better? Because they genuinely care about people, not process, which is the opposite of the tiger brain, which is completely the other side of the grid, where they're process over people. So the tiger, that stealthy padding towards the goal, they can work in a darkened room. They don't need the pride. They'd prefer to work in a darkened room. They prefer never to speak to anyone ever again. Small talk baffles them.
They're like,
they're so laser focused. Yes, and they're very risk averse. So you go up to them as a lion brain and go, "Hi, how was your weekend?" And they're like, "What's your point? What do you mean? How was my week? Have you finished those figures? Where's that data? Show me the pie chart." So they're zoomed in so closely. They're like Google Street Maps front door. We know where you live, as opposed to that cheetah that's so high level and out there and airy ideas. This is the real data. Give me the data. Give me the facts. And they're very risk averse because they hate wasting time and money. So that brain type is that's data driven. Whereas the lion is auditory and the cheetah's visual. These guys are just pure auditory digital. So give me the facts. Just tell me exactly what I need to know. No fluff. So you can really wind those guys up if you're a lion, because you don't get that. Yeah. And when opposites attract, when you see a lot of couples in business, what often happens is one is the data and the back end, and the other's the talker in the front end. And guess what? They have very little understanding of what the other one does, but they're brilliant in their zone of genius.
Because it works, because they complement each other.
They complement. And I coach a lot of couples in business that end up in those polarized positions, and they don't understand why they don't understand. Because we only know what we know. We're born with a neurology, and we're nurtured into a certain way of being. But then there's all these other brain types, and we think everyone thinks like us, and they don't. And we think everyone sees the world like we do, and they don't.
So there's the cheetah brain, the lion brain,
the
tiger brain.
Yeah, the last one I find the most fascinating. So this is at the bottom of the grid. This is the leopard. And the leopard has zero ego. And the leopard has a much more when and where mindset. So whereas the cheetah thinks of what's the big idea? The lion's question is always who are you? Tell me your story. The leopard starts thinking about the when and the where. So for example, if a cheetah and a leopard sign up to one of my retreats, the leopard is, before they've even put in their credit card details, is Googling the postcode. Where is it? How do I'll book my train ticket now because it'll be cheaper. Where's the best hotel for the best price? Okay, I'll go. They do all that level of detail. The cheetah wakes up in the morning and goes, right, where is it? Oh, holy crap, it's South Kensington. And then they get on a train and then they're an hour late and they paid 20 quid more than they just process the world in very different ways. But the leopard is all about organisation and systems. So whereas the tiger is process and risk, the leopard is the one in the team that's always going to be the planner. So in an entrepreneur sense, what we see with leopards is they often won't have their own idea for a business. They'll use a franchise or they'll use somebody else's idea or frame. They are amazing at actually doing the job because they're the most efficient and smooth, and they're so good at holding, because this is where the bridge of connectivity goes towards context and collaboration and contract. So this is all about the client journey. So my personal assistant, who you've obviously been in touch with, the lovely Sophie, she's a leopard brain. Why did I hire her? Because she's the opposite of me. So she does all of the admin. She does all of the stuff that I just step over and I forget. And, don't give me a spreadsheet because I'll break it for you. Whereas Sophie will not only mend it, she'll make it better than it was. And she's got that organisational locked in view of what needs to happen when, which I, as a flighty, I'm a mix of cheetah and lion, in case you can't tell. And so my brain is always exploding with the next thing that I'm doing and connecting all over the place and coaching and loving on everybody. I forget all of the back end. So I employ tigers and leopards to work around me.
I love that. No, my brain's like, there's like a billion questions I want to ask. But so first I want to have an idea of which one of the four business brain I have. Which one? And I probably I probably have like a dominant and a secondary.
We usually see a single dominant with a strong second is a common profile. Sometimes we get a double dominant where you get two scores that are the same. Sometimes you get what I call a Swiss Army knife where you've got an equal split with all four brains. And what that person tends to do...
Is that somebody who's confused? Or?
They get very confused because they don't know which animal to let out the cage first. And so I have to work with them to get them to know when to let the cheetah run and when to come up with the visions. And we use physical environment as well. I move people around their house. Right, go and sit in your cheetah zone now. Okay, now you're doing your accounts, get in your tiger zone. And you can block your time because it's not about time, it's about energy. So I've got different zones in my space. So I'm currently not in my coaching zone. I don't coach from here. This is my studio. So this is my presenter mode. So this is when I'm in star mode of being visible, shining the light on my knowledge. But when I'm in coaching mode, it has to be softer and warmer because I need more line. So I've got a much more cozy little nook that's my coaching space. And so, but I've got to be honest, I don't have a tiger space because I hate it so much. I just employ someone very brilliant in the tiger space.
Which is perfect. So, and it's funny because, so this is, yes, my recording space, but this is also my coaching space, teaching space. But when I work for my business or my creative side, whatever, I'm either like set up, spread out on my dining room table, thank God I have a big dining room table, or I'll be in a coffee shop.
Yes.
Because I do need to change that space. And I think, especially now with everybody working from home, very few think of changing that.
Oh God, it's so common. And especially with a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with that happen to be in couples and running a business together, and when they've got a desk in their bedroom and they've got all of their files like spread over the bed, and I'm like, guys, you're heading for dead bedroom unless you change that now, because it's so important. And everything, this is where the science meets the woo. Everything has a vibration. Everything has an energy and a frequency around it. When we understand the biometrics of energy management, we start delving into things like resting variable heart rate, for example, is a metric that's rapidly getting picked up. I don't know if you've heard of the Aura rings and the Whoop straps, where we're starting to use biometrics in a completely different way to run businesses. And what they're finding is, with all of the new measurements they've got, we started with functional MRI technology 15 years ago, where you can see the blood flow changing in the brain as different bits are activated, which I always find fascinating. But now we're beginning to get a real understanding of how energy changes a space. And the vibration that you're at when you're in a space it's almost like it changes the air or leaves a residue, to use an analogy. But we know this instinctively. We know that animals pick up on vibes. And anyone that's ever been in a vet that sees the waiting room, you know, all those animals are in an altered state because of where they are and the dynamics that they're having to play out. But when they go into the vet's consult room as well, what's fascinating is how the behaviour changes depending on who's in that room with that animal. And that was also one of those light bulb moments for me where I went, oh my God, humans are just still animals, and we forget. We forget, we tell ourselves we're so clever, but we've got to return to some of this understanding of ourselves as a biochemical creature and as a creature of habit and as a creature of patterns and social, like you working in a coffee shop is now socially acceptable, isn't it?
Yes.
That's now totally normalised. But it wasn't when coffee shops came to London in 2001 when I was there. It was really weird. Like people were, the coffee shops were empty, first of all. It was hilarious. No one knew what to do in one. And so
That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
It took a good year before you started seeing people doing anything more than going in and buying a coffee and walking out again. And then you start seeing these little shifts in behaviours and these little shifts in how people. So you're right. The pandemic has changed so much. Like the Zoom call is normalised now.
Yes.
So, totally acceptable.
Yeah, people find it strange if I call somebody. They're like, "Where's the Zoom link?" I'm like,
Where's the
"I
Zoom?
will call you."
Yeah.
They're like, "Huh?" And obviously, if my phone rings, I'm always like, "What is that noise?" So,
who is that thing? Yes. Is it someone I know? So we've got to start to be a bit clever about how we use our environments. We've got to think of it like setting up your cockpit in a plane. You know, how that plane flies is directly a result of how easy it is to access your instruments and read your panel. And it's the same with running a business. You've got to know what changes your energy and what dials it up and what dials it down. And I'm very intensely aware of, because coaching is my thing, because I love to coach, that energizes me. I can do a whole day of that. And at the end of the day, I'm more energized than if I hadn't done it. Whereas spreadsheets, I'd rather poke my eyes out with a spoon. Like when I have to do anything like an expenses form or anything like that, I know that I can only attack that in a high energy state and in a positioning that's, you know, going to serve me. And I set a timer on my phone. It goes off at 43 minutes precisely, and I stop and I walk away from it. And that's the only way I can get through those tasks if I can't hand them off to somebody else.
So, all right, I like the 4 brains, love it. I like also being super practical. How do I go about to understand or have an idea of what is my brain type? How do I leverage it? And I have another question, and we can address that after.
Yeah.
If you know you're a cheetah or a lion and your assistant, you said she's a tiger. It's nice theoretically that there's a you complement each other, but sometimes it must get on your nerves.
The problem is the understanding of it is what's lacking. So I go around the country, I do workshops in offices and organisations teaching this stuff. And I was retained by a couple of big names for a couple of years to induct their whole sales team into it. And we saw profits rise dramatically. It was so funny watching the numbers just climb as people understood each other, because it's not just about understanding yourself, it's understanding where the other person's coming from when they're talking to you. What's important to them? What do they care about? Because that alters your communication with them. And suddenly you get into this amazing game where you don't just wake up in the morning and think, how can I keep myself more in flow today? You start waking up in the morning and thinking, well, how can I keep Sarah more in flow today? What can I do for her? And suddenly you get this amazing boom of collaboration and the workplace changes. And with entrepreneurs, what's fantastic is, because usually entrepreneurs work with a small team, quite a tight team, those bonds and those linkages become even ever more important. And so when we start to have this respect for, and you start to forgive yourself as well, like this is the opposite of a school report. So with a school report, you get told you're crap at maths, do more maths. This says, you're really great over here. How can you free yourself from everything else that's on the other side and just focus on your zone of genius? How can you do more of that? And so you start forgiving yourself for example, spreadsheets. And I've actually had someone cry on me, and she was like, The only reason I did a PhD was so that I could feel good at all those tiger tasks. Now I realise I'm not a tiger. I don't have to be good at them. But she'd been told her whole life that that was what success looked like.
Work on your weaknesses. There is a lot of stories like that.
And it's exhausting. It's exhausting because we can all do everything. It's something that I do have to say that's really important. This doesn't put you in a box. It does the opposite. We can all do everything. But what those out of flow tasks do to you is drain you faster than the things that are in your flow. The things that are in your flow state energize you. And you can do them all day and you love it. And it's easy. And you, as a result, are really good at it. You're really productive and you're really powerful. But when you know there's stuff that's out of flow, you just minimize it, you dial it down, and you manage it.
So the reason I'm laughing is I can spend a good chunk of change of time with my clients in coaching. No problem. The other day, I did a task. I spent 45 minutes. I actually went and have a shower and put jogging suit and sweatpants after that. I was done.
You're done. You're toast.
My energy level went like, whoa.
Yeah. And it is like someone's unplugged you from your power source.
Yes.
And there's also like, there's so much to be understood about energetics. And I'm still learning myself, and I've got a brilliant mentor, and I'm really fascinated with this field of energetics that we know so little about. And yet we already know so much. We already know the wisdom and the truth behind this because we feel it.
Yes, we feel it. We know it deep down.
We know. And that's why I think it's almost like a process of remembering that we already know this stuff. You don't need to learn it. You just need to live it. You need to be, not do, and not have. Just the being. Come back to being, and the doing and the having follows naturally.
I love that. You don't need to know it. You need to live it. Because as you said in the beginning, there's a lot of personality tests. You know, I'm orange, I'm a carrot, I'm a giraffe, whatever.
I'm a carrot. I want to do that.
You know, I just hope I'm not a carrot, but whatever. You know, and people are like, awesome, but they don't know what to do with it.
Yes. Yeah. And bluntly, the reason I invented a new one was because I saw the bit that was lacking in the others. I'm trained in 5 other types. I've spent a lot of time learning about this before I then designed my own and designed my Tame Your Brain program. But the reason I did it was because it misses that fundamental thing of, yes, learn about yourself, but the bigger power is in learning about others. Learning about what you're not is so powerful. And learning about how to talk to people who are not like me is so groundbreaking. It's such an exciting piece to be able to deliver to businesses because it changes the game. Like, imagine if you can know what your client is and know what they're going to receive you in, what modality is best to communicate with them in. So, for example, for my tiger clients, I will never call them. I will email them telling them I'm going to call them, and I'll tell them what we're going to talk about. I will put that in bullet points for them and send them an email with 24 hours notice before I ever contact them by phone. Lions, I'm picking up the phone and I'm just like jumping on a Zoom and I'm connecting with them like that. Cheetahs, I'm going to give them the vision. I'm going to tell them what I can see for them. Leopards, it's kinesthesia, so we've got to go into the feeling. How do you feel about this? And so when you know this, you suddenly get superpowers in managing people and in leading them. Yeah. But you have to lead yourself first. You have to lead you and know what your brain is doing before you can then apply that to your client base.
So I find that a lot of these tests, entrepreneurs do it for them.
Yeah.
But now I'm realizing that that's just step one. Step two, you also need to do it with your team.
Yes.
And in an ideal world, step 3, you also do it for your clients.
Yeah. And it becomes like a new language. You start speaking in tiger and leopard. It's really amazing. And my beautiful team that I'm so blessed to have, we literally, our team meetings are always like, right, let's do the leopard tasks first. Let's get Sophie happy first. And then we'll calm Libby down, pat her on the head because she's going to get anxious unless we do the speaking gigs. And then we'll do the tiger tasks. And we literally work around the grid. Everything works around the grid.
And I love that because it's not about labeling. It's about naming.
Yes. You're not putting them in a box.
Something, it brings it to awareness.
Yes. And also the awareness leads to empathy, which leads to effectiveness. So empathy is so vital in business. It's so easy to get lost in chasing the numbers, chasing the results. But as soon as we come back to empathy, how can I serve? How can I genuinely elevate this person? How can I make their life better? What can I do? How do I need to communicate with them so that this becomes easy and joyous? Is the other way to think about it. And I love having the power, bluntly, to use a very strong word, but the power to make my clients feel amazing is one of those things that, you know, before I learned this stuff, and by the way, when I did learn this stuff, my business went up 300% overnight. It was incredible. It was just incredible because it opened your eyes to what you're, because we've got our blinkers on, you get your lion goggles on, you act like a lion, you see like a lion, you behave like a lion. So, for example, there's only 2 chairs available in a lion's brain. You either love me or you're dead to me. That's it. There's no in between. There's just like, you're either in my pride or I will fight you to the death. So when you understand this, and when you understand that's how a lion sees the world, and that's how they will judge you, and then you understand they also judge themselves like that. So they make a mistake, beat themselves up is like not even in it. They will attack themselves. They will literally self-flagellate until they're a bleeding mess on the floor because they think the world will judge them as they judge the world.
Well, that's what we do, right?
Right.
Right. Maybe I love it. We could spend hours on this, but I think to bring it all together is understand which one is your strong primary, which one of the 4 brain is your strong, your secondary. Understand on your team,
yes,
who are they? And I love the naming part of it.
Yes.
Because then it explains, it says, okay, perfect. Sophie works like this. This person works like this. And if somebody comes back and asks for information or things like that, and they're talking processes, and I'm like, hey, how was your weekend? There's conflict. Well, as a leader, it's my role to also bring awareness to, oh, that's what she needs. That's what he needs.
Yes. And I have had one client say, well, this all feels very uncomfortable. This feels like manipulation. You can guess what profile this person was. This is all this psychobabble mumbo jumbo. And it was so funny listening to him. And I was like, look, here's the data. Here's a study from the Herman Brain Dominance Institute on the careers people go into with different brain types. Here's this. And I just laid out piece after piece of data. And he was just like, oh. And it was comedy. But there's some resistance to this idea of manipulation, of the idea of changing the way you are to communicate. But we do that all the time anyway.
Yeah, but that's the foundation of empathy.
That's empathy. Absolutely. You talk to a 3-year-old in a different way than you would to a 30-year-old. You know, we automatically adjust. And interestingly, this is a cool fun fact, the motherese, the pitch that women speak to their children in is the frequency, the hertz, that is preferentially received by the neuronal complexes in the brain. It's so funny. And when you go, hey, baby, and you automatically go into that tone, which is the same tone I use to my cat. She just looked at me. She just went, what?
Which is true. We use the same one for animals as well.
For our little fur babies. So when you go into that, it's because you don't know the data. You don't know how it works. You haven't done the studies into neurology. You just do it because you know.
Yes.
No, that works. And we watch it land better. Because when we go, hey, baby, and they don't even blink from their Play-Doh and they're mashing it into your carpet, you know, we realise that does not work. That is not effective communication. And so when we're doing, hey, baby, we're just being as effective as possible. And that's what this is just learning how to be more effective. I don't teach productivity, I teach effectiveness. And how to be effective in business is one of the best things you can gift yourself because it just saves you so much time and energy.
And energy.
Yes.
I can tell you from the other day, me wearing sweatpants in the middle of the afternoon. Like, and I needed my energy to do something else, but I was done.
Done for the day, baby.
Libby, this has been fascinating. For the people who want to know more about you, about these 4 different brains, how they work and everything, where can they find you in this beautiful World Wide Web?
So I've got a little community called the Sisterhood for Alpha Entrepreneurs, which is where I play. So I do a lot of free training in there. So everyone, please do join my gang. I'd love to have you all. Loved connecting with you, Sarah. So if they're anything like you, your gang out there in the world, love to have you in there. But the Sisterhood is where I do my masterclasses and my training. People can email me, which is just libby@kemkaran.com. If anyone does want to do their own personalised profile,
Yes.
then I'm really happy to offer 10% off for anyone listening to this today. That's something I'm always happy to do anyway, because I want this in the hands of more people in the world.
Bringing the awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And the profile comes with an hour one-to-one call with me, where we unpack what it means to you and how you can apply it in your business and your life, and how to talk to the other sides of the grid that are not like you. And I personalise that. That's a bespoke hour with me. And we also can go into business planning around your profile type. So how best to use your energy, how to maximise that, and how to stop procrastinating for life. Because once you understand your neurology, it's really simple to just keep within your flow states and maximise how effective you can be in the time that you are using. Because it is sad to me how few people are aware that procrastination is just avoidance behaviours. It's literally when you're heading towards pain, not pleasure.
Yes.
As soon as you twist that dial, you can turn it into towards behaviours that make you so much more effective in your business.
And
so yeah, come find me.
Perfect. I'll put the links there, because yes, that energy management and understanding, like, how do I work and how does the other person work changes everything. So I'm not surprised when you spoke about like the increase in the growth of the business, because
Yes.
it's all about that. So can we get out of the hustle and do more and whatever, and you have to fit in that mold, and can I fit in my own mold?
Yes.
But own it.
And own it in a way that feels good, and part of that Be Do Have continuum is about getting to a state of being, not doing. So it stops being the hustle and it starts to be who you are.
Yes.
It's no longer like a coat you put on. It is you, and you embody it, and you live your journey, and it is like a state of remembering who you are underneath it all.
Yes. Lady, thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Such a pleasure, Sarah. So lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
I hope you like this interview, and I hope you were able to identify which one of these you are. I know we continued talking after the interview, and I was able to really pinpoint who I am and how those are great strengths. And at the same time, there are areas of improvements in there, but not for me to work on those areas, but for me to find the right people that I can work with as team members and also as clients. So it really sheds light on who we are, because once we bring more self-awareness as who we are, how we work, where we shine, how can I activate the different areas, the different other profiles that are not mine? How can I activate when I need to activate? That's when we really see that so much more is possible. So I hope you liked the interview. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Have a look at Dr. Libby's profile. It's really super enlightening, and especially talking with her afterwards, where she really helps us put into action, because it's nice. The concept is really nice, but it's worthless if we can't put it into action for ourselves, for our team, for our business. So take the profile, do the profile, embody your profile. Again, because from there we see that so much more is possible. I can tell you that. Thank you for being here week after week, and I will see you next Tuesday.